Welcome to the Just Music Podcast. I am your host, Jalen, and this guest that we have on the show, I am very, very excited to interview this gentleman because he has a resume in the music industry that not many people can say they have, not many people have achieved. He is the president of significant media in music. He's also a musician. He's also an engineer. He also is very, very much involved in collaborative producing in the arts
Mhm.
and music industry. He's also a podcaster. He has a podcast musical that he recently launched, which we're also going to get into. And he's just somebody that has a wealth of knowledge to give, whether it be based in music or based in life. He's somebody that I believe you are really going to enjoy hearing from today. Mr. Bill Mullin, how are you, sir?
I am all inspiring, is how I am today. At least I want to be
Yes,
for
sir.
your audience. You're doing a good thing here, Jalen, and I'm glad to be part of helping people get insights, helping people start to realize their potential and how to navigate. That's a really big part of what we're going to talk about is how do you evolve?
Yes,
Darwin said, it's survival of the fittest. And people take that to mean the strongest. But really, what he meant was the fittest for adaptation. Who is ready to zig when they should zig and zag when they should zag and,
yes.
and spot opportunities? And that's, you talk about the things that I've done. And it sounds like I couldn't keep a job, but in reality, it was one thing led to another. You know what I mean? And suddenly you have layers that you're working with, and you get into realms of meeting people and seeing how you can bring the best of people together and create what's called synergy. And that's that whole, the sum is bigger than the parts. That
Absolutely.
that that sense of a dynamic. It's really a vibe
Yes, sir.
that is created. And yeah. Um, First and foremost, like any artist, I want to be inspired myself.
Right.
And I carried that through to the business side.
Mhm.
And inspired, of course, has the words, the root of it is in spirit. So to have a spirited sense of why you're doing what you do. And it starts to rub off, number one. But number two, people want to be around lively people. People want to be people who have some determination. I am not, by the way, Mr. Extrovert. You know,
Right.
I was a C and D student and quiet. And it took a lot for me to finally get to find a way to express, and it was by music.
Right.
Music was the platform.
Right.
So yes, you don't have to be a spark plug. Some people are naturally, and I admire that level of charisma. But you can cop some of that. You can have it in your own style, and you can just show that you have determination. You can show that you have um, a sense for getting things done. And uh, I think a lot of that tends to be discovery, going for something new, you
Yes.
know, um, not not being a copy artist, not
Yes.
not.
Yes.
So there's a lot behind that.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. And you you said a lot of gems there, and you talked about how you know you are not an extrovert. You are an introverted person, and you talked about how music was this gift, was this platform where you could really tap into, your potential and how you could, be a light and play your part in bringing people together and
mhm.
helping them realize their potential. So kind of break it down a little bit for the audience. Talk about where your journey for music started,
Okay.
right?
What I realized, as I just mentioned, that introvert. started to learn what I many years later heard called ambivert, like being ambidextrous. And I
Right.
understood that word because I was a drummer, and that's where I started.
Right.
I heard the power of drumming, and there were times when the British invasion, as for instance, just the drums jumped out of the radio.
Hmm.
And so I think that was also natural for somebody who was quiet to then have a physical outlet, that the beat and getting a groove and feeling it uh, was something that attracted me into, and some of the great drummers of those times, whether it was Mitch Mitchell with Jimi Hendrix, for instance, who was just all over the drum set, as well as Keith Moon for The Who. Those guys were literally monsters, like the monster on Sesame Street drummer,
Right.
you know, and but I really dug at that point. This is the '60s, so I was blessed to experience waves of stylistic exploration, and one of them that, of course, everybody got together to play three-chord garage band music at first, and then along comes the soul sound. Of course, there was Motown, but Motown was a big production. That was
Yeah.
highly orchestrated and tight as could be, and
Yeah.
hard to replicate live. But man, when the Memphis scene came along, all of us went, "Whoa, good! This is nitty gritty. We can get in there, and the changes we can handle." And it was all very, again, kind of orchestrated. Guitar parts contrasted to the keyboard parts, and you could hear everything in place. So I guess I'm saying I also came to appreciate simplistic, I want to say, arrangement, you
Right.
know, what those guys would do just to keep out of each other's way and make songs distinctive. So that was a big, and I had a buddy, my longest time musician friend, to this day, he's a Hammond artist, you know. And so he joined up with us, with the guitar band, and we got into the soul thing. He went off to college a year ahead of me, so I was back to playing with some of the guys younger than me who were around, and we put a three-piece power trio together. Point of that, though, is we we only had been together a couple months, and so we only had so much material. And I realized, man, I want us to play out. So I decided to start renting the Armory in town, small town in Connersville, Indiana, and started hanging placards all over town. So I became the promoter as a kid. And here's my parents letting me go do this at like the age of 16,
Right.
17. It's like they're probably, they weren't even thinking about, wonder if he could take us under doing something. Uh, but it was a lot of fun because there was a band out of Muncie, Indiana that had a RCA record deal, and they had a song out that was regionally doing well. So I hired them for us to do the warm up, so it was a gig for my band so that we could get out there. It was probably a lot of the motivation, but I also was successful. So before long, I'm hiring bands from that general Cincinnati, Indianapolis region, southern Indiana, and things like the Lemon Pipers. They had a song called "My Green Tambourine," a psychedelic song,
Mhm.
and other regional known bands that would come to town, and people would go, "Whoa!" Group called the McCoys was from that area. They did a song called "Hang On, Sloopy."
Yeah. Remember
So
that.
if we're flashing back to way before your audience
I
time,
only know that
but
song.
the,
Sorry, I
the
didn't mean
whole
to cut you.
the whole point is just to put it into context. You know what I
Right,
mean? That
right. And I remember,
that's
right.
survival skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so going to say, I remember Hang On Sloopy because I did marching band in high school. I remember. So,
You had
but
a band director that grew up with my age.
oh yeah, oh yeah, we did Hang On Sloopy, Louie, 30, 25 or 6 to 4,
Dum,
Final
dum, dum,
Countdown,
dum, 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 dum.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all those rock and roll classics. And what I love about what you said just now in explaining, your upbringing and your getting into the music industry. And you mentioned how